Hello, hello.
Welcome. Welcome to the Musical QuaranStream. If you haven't been here before, or even if you have, I'm Bri.
And I am Glen.
And we talk about musicals here.
Yes, and we've already got Bristol and Jenny have checked in. So
Great.
Nice to see you guys back with us. It's always a pleasure to see you there, and happy Saturday to you guys.
We've closed our contest, so
Yes.
we should be shipping things out soon. Since we have a few loyal visitors, you probably know who you are right now. Ginny and Bristol, you for sure are getting a package. So
Yes, you're getting a prize package from us.
we hope to get that in the mail soon.
Yes. And Jenny, make certain that you send me, of course not on chat, because chat is public here, make sure you send me your mailing information so we can get that to you. All right, and let's see, do we have anything else? We've got, we watched the National Theater's Frankenstein.
Yeah, we sure did.
That is on their YouTube channel.
I mean, I hate to be a misandrist, but I wish a woman wrote it. I feel like that was a big thing for me. It was different, and I think kind of going into it, we were told you're either going to love it or hate it. And I don't think I hated it, but I was not as excited as I had been for past National Theater productions.
Yeah, it was an experiment. Not all experiments are as successful as other experiments. So there was a lot to like about it, and I think it's probably just gone off of YouTube today, hasn't it?
I don't know. I think it went up on Friday, but
all right.
I mean, it could. I mean, if you want to go check, we watched It Flips Roles. Yeah. So we watched Johnny Lee Miller as the creator and Benedict Cumberbatch as the creature, but you can watch the reverse if you prefer. Yeah,
there's Johnny Lee Miller and Benedict Cumberbatch played the two lead roles, and every night they switched which role they were playing. And as Bri said, we watched the one with Benedict Cumberbatch playing the monster. And it's an interesting production, but I think that each of us pretty much preferred everything else we've seen the National Theater has put up so far in quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, we really liked Twelfth Night. We really liked One Man, Two Governors. I really liked Treasure Island. So I think that there's a lot, like, it's a great space. And I think that helps really sell a lot of these pieces that they do. But this one was a bit of a flop for us, unfortunately, but still worth seeing. Like, I mean, we might even skip through the reverse casting just to some of the parts to see how they're different. But I think it's really great that they're putting stuff up fairly regularly. I also watched the Stephen Sondheim 90th birthday stream with all the lovely people singing, and that was great. That's up on YouTube. I'm still listening to Bleeding Love, which is on the Broadway Podcast Network, and you can download on your, iTunes podcast. They're up to episode 2, which is all about moms. So just in time for Mother's Day, so that's pretty nice. What else? There's a reading of Hate Mail, which is a play we both really like, starring Paul F. Tompkins, that I think we're going to look into doing. And then there's another Mystery Science Theater production that we want to look into as well.
Mystery Science Theater is doing a live stream. I think it's tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern on Pluto TV. So if you look up Pluto TV, it's a streaming web channel, but it's all done TV channel style in that you have to tune in at a specific time. It isn't on demand, but it's the touring cast of Mystery Science Theater. So this is
you haven't seen them probably.
Yeah, you haven't seen them on Netflix. You haven't seen them on VHS or DVD. This is the touring company that Joel Hodgson put together. So they're doing that. That's kind of exciting. As you can probably tell, whenever we talk musicals, we both like musicals. Bri pretty much lives and breathes musicals.
Yes. I have a challenge I'm setting for myself since I'm going back to work. It looks like on May 11th. How often I can sing before somebody realizes I'm singing and not talking, because I think it would be really fun. Maybe I just have a very musical voice.
You realize you're basically going to be Melody from the original Josie and the Pussycats now.
I'll take it.
But Bri lives and breathes musicals. I often say she is walking through a musical every single day of her life. I like musicals. I don't live and breathe them the way that Bri does. I live and breathe more movies, which is appropriate for today's musical pitch.
Yep. One more thing that I am watching that I'd recommend everybody kind of take a look at is I'm still getting through the second round of the Quarantine Bake Off. I watched the first round. I'm still kind of watching part 2. We had a lot of hubbub come up this past week. As we kind of mentioned, we're moving in the near future. We thought we'd be moving on Tuesday. Now we're moving on Thursday. And there's a lot of pressure because we have to be out of this apartment next Sunday, so in about a week. So that's been very stressful. And then they've started furloughing people at my work. So either people are going to get their salaries cut by 20% or they're going to be furloughed. And we don't know where I fall into that. I'm assuming I'm still working since people are still giving me work to do, but... so I wanted to catch up a little bit more on musicals and theater online. So the Quarantine Bake Off fell a little bit to the side, but I highly recommend checking that out. And then we found out by checking the website, my play from round 1 is up. So if you search Dance Like Nobody's Watching, so just search Dance in the round 1, you'll find mine. Mm-hmm. But we looked for Glen's.
My round 1... My round 1 contribution to the Quarantine Bake Off apparently was never posted to the website. So
we don't know what happened. But if you want a copy, it is on the New Play Exchange.
Yes. Oh, and our OBS studio says that it has disconnected, so I don't know if you guys can still see us or not out there.
Well, I'm glad we didn't get started on Om Shanti Om just yet. So hopefully we'll be reconnected here soon. If not, this little bit of ramble you'll see on the YouTube channel.
Yes, on the YouTube channel. But in the meantime, if you can still see us, please drop a note into the chat. That'll help us know whether we should keep on going or not.
Yeah. And we just want to thank everybody for participating in Turkey Lurkey Time. I've had a really fun time putting together the packages. You'll get one shirt from the show that's either our Virginia is for social distancing or our logo. You'll also get 2 masks hand-sewed by yours truly and 2 big chunky bars of soap that I have also made, along with a lovely caricature by this gentleman sitting to my left.
All right, so I think it says that we are reconnected. Great. So if you guys can see us again, feel free to drop a message into chat. Hey, there we go. We're back. Jenny can see us.
Great.
All right. So,
Om Shanti Om.
Om Shanti Om. Let's talk about Om Shanti Om. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the source material. Released in 2007. This is a Bollywood film, so it's from the Hindi language film industry of India, Mumbai-based. And this is written and directed by Farah Khan, I believe. Farah Khan is married to Shah Rukh Khan. Farah Khan is one of the most frequently working dancers and choreographers in all of Bollywood. And Shah Rukh Khan is one of the biggest name celebrities to come out of India.
Like Tom Hanks, or like somebody who's been around a long time and very, very famous.
I would say he's probably, worldwide, he's probably as well known, or maybe even more well known, as Tom Cruise. That he's got that kind of star power worldwide. It's just here in the U.S. where people don't really pay attention to actors unless they're from the U.S. or maybe occasionally the U.K.
Well, as we all saw from Parasite reviews, not a lot of Bollywood translates well into American audiences because we don't like to read, or that's very problematic sometimes to read subtitles. I'm not trying to be ableist, but I do feel that there's a lot of hindrances that do kind of come with watching a Bollywood film, despite this one having a fair bit of English in it because they are dealing with the movie industry, and there's a lot of Hindi slang and stuff that the English will just be said. Yeah. So I think it's fairly accessible. I don't hear all that well, so I think I keep on closed captionings the whole time. I don't hear well. I don't see well. I'm a bit of a mess. But, you know, this was one of my first introductions to Bollywood. I think this is probably within the first top 10 movies from Bollywood I saw. I just love it to pieces. I love all the music. We were just talking about it has a very strong early 2000s aesthetic. Yes, it's pretty great. And I don't know. I've always felt it could be a great translation. And this past year, there was a musical called K-pop that opened up off Broadway and was very successful because now with boy bands like BTS and Monsta X and stuff like that, Americans have gotten into listening to a lot of Korean pop. Yeah. Even though J-pop and a lot of other things did not really translate very well over here, but that did. And I guess I just kind of figured after K-pop success, this was kind of the next thing I'd like to see on a Broadway stage, because I feel like if we can all sit and listen to Korean pop, I think we can listen to all these songs in Hindi and really enjoy it. And I feel like recent shows like the adaptation of The Producers have shown that as much as we've seen very revolutionary Broadway shows, there's an element within Broadway that wants to go back to old-fashioned, like, glamorous chorus line, big dance numbers, big, flashy musical numbers sort of thing, which Bollywood, particularly films like this out of Bollywood, really translates well into that, because music, I've often said the thing that pulled me into Bollywood to begin with was any genre could be a musical. That if you start digging through Bollywood films, you'll find not every film is a musical, but every film usually has at least one pop song that occurs in the middle of the show, not during the credits, the way American movies like to do them. But it happens in the middle of the show, with dancing, with singing, that sort of thing. And you will find horror movies, like slasher movies, filmed in Bollywood that are essentially musicals because they have big musical numbers with all of the cast in them. You'll find war movies, very serious war movies, Saving Private Ryan style war movies that have musical numbers where the entire cast sings. You'll see any genre that you can imagine will do this. And one of the things I genuinely love about Om Shanti Om, and we were discussing it as we were rewatching it recently to prepare for this show, is that it's very clear when you look at all of the work that they have done in addition to this, that Shah Rukh Khan and Farah Khan are both huge movie nerds. Like, they love everything about film, the film industry, film history, and they just put it into everything. Well, it's very much similar that I think if we ever saw a movie that's described as a love letter to old Hollywood, yes, that's really what this is. And there's like a lot of very telling instances. Like, they invite back a lot of very, very famous people to come do cameos. They have kind of like this Who Framed Roger Rabbit moment of splicing old characters from movies into modern film. So it's like the heroine is portraying a love scene with an old movie actor by they spliced the film together. It wasn't CGI or anything. They're just kind of meshing film. Yeah. And they do a lot of things that are kind of insider jokes that if you've watched a lot of Bollywood films, you would sit there and say, oh, I get that. And so I feel that, you know, even though we as Americans might not really have that kind of like deep, rich history as somebody, you know, growing up in India and watching these fairly regularly, you can still kind of appreciate that because you know that we definitely have movies and musicals where it does celebrate, here's this big old Broadway musical, here's this big old Hollywood film. Like, you know, wasn't things all polished and glamorous back then?
And this is a point where I feel, as pitching this adaptation, I feel like you have to stay. There's translation, adaptation, and there's localization. And localization is when you're looking at the source material and you're saying, how can I make this attractive to the audience in the market that I'm doing this, which would typically involve a lot of shifting around context and things like that. I feel like, as much as this is a love letter to classic Bollywood film, localization would be the wrong direction to go with this show. So it isn't about making it a love letter to old Broadway. It isn't about making it a love letter to old Hollywood. It would be about, for me, taking a love letter to old Bollywood and also making it an introduction into Bollywood for people who have never seen it before.
I agree. I think it really has to be something that, if you like this film, you would want to go back and see the things that they're referencing. So that you could say, oh, this is a common trope in Bollywood, so maybe I want to go back and watch that movie. And I think that that's kind of what happens when you start watching these types of films as well, is you'll hear about, well, here's all the big stars, and here's all the big, people who remembered, as a little kid, I saw this in the theater, and it was like one of the highest grossing ones. You might want to see that. So I think it's the way anybody kind of gets introduced to anything.
Yeah. And it's a very beautiful story. And I think that for adaptation to the stage, it's got a perfect 3-act structure. Like, I was paying attention to the time as it passed as we were rewatching the movie. And I'm like, you could almost divide it as a mini-series. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and have perfectly matched up episode lengths. So for me, when I look at I want to adapt this, I would say it's a 3-act play. There may be 2 intermissions in the course of the show. That's unusual for lighter fare on Broadway, which I do think this would qualify as lighter fare on Broadway. But I think it's important for the style of the story, and I also think that would reflect the tendency of Bollywood toward longer films.
Well, and you said you found an adaptation in your research.
Yes, there actually has been a stage adaptation of Om Shanti Om that was produced by a Japanese all-female acting troupe in Tokyo just a few years ago, like 3 years ago or so, with the approval and input of Farah Khan. So it's already got like a history of making it onto the stage.
And the biggest thing that I think that we've seen on a Broadway stage is Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bombay Dreams.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's something, but it's not, I don't think it's as much as I would have expected, because we do see these kinds of influences on pop culture, whether it's Spanish or Japanese or Indian, and then they kind of fade away pretty quickly. They don't really have kind of, I would say, the cultural impact that I would have expected, and it just takes a little bit longer for things to get to Broadway. And I think one of the toughest struggles is this going to make its money back? But I just feel like clearly Bollywood has a huge population that wants to see these movies. So I feel like, maybe this would bring a whole new audience to Broadway, or maybe there are people who are already kind of seeing Broadway stuff, but having to imagine what it would be like that they're, like Glenn said, it would be having a Indian man be the hugest sex symbol on Broadway. And that's not something that really has been done before in a Broadway show or in a straight play or anything in America. So I think that it's kind of time. It's 2020. Hopefully when we're all out, like this is a strong push that I think that would get a lot of kids really interested in becoming actors, becoming performers, or doing theater as a hobby, as something that's fulfilling to them, and then also having like a really freaking catchy, beautiful show.
So let's get into a little bit of the story. And if you haven't seen the film, of course, spoilers are coming up, but you should go see the film anyway, even though I'm about to spoil the story, because it's a phenomenal film. It just really is.
And we're going to be glossing over it really quickly.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get to everything that's really great about it.
So the first act, as I see it, picks up our story from the beginning of the film, which is we're introduced to Om Prakash, and I forget the last name of the character.
All I know is it's not Kapoor, because that's what it should be according to his best friend, because that's a star's name.
Yes. Om Prakash and Papu, which is his friend, who are junior artistes, which basically is a term for they're extras. But they're in Hollywood, they would be called featured extras, because they're like the extra that when you need an extra to run at the camera screaming, "Run!" That's the guy they go to.
Yeah, essentially, it looks like if families grew up near the backlot, and your industry was, you would be a junior artist and your son would be a junior artist. It's very much like there is this movie studio, and the town that grew up around it is everybody producing the movies, whether it's the guys who are in sound or the directors or the extras, but everybody kind of lives there, and then like the superstars and stuff live a little bit further out. But for the most part, this town has been created on the industry of movies.
Yeah. So you have Om lives on the studio backlot, essentially. His mother is a former junior artiste herself, and his father, who has passed away before the events of the movie, never advanced above a junior artiste in his life. And Om dreams of making his way to being a star.
He wants to be a hero in the movies.
Yes, that would be the term for, move on from junior artiste to hero, which is the star.
And his friend is really supportive. It's like Papu is like the best wingman.
Oh,
He is all into it. He's kind of like his manager almost. Mm-hmm. He always kind of says, "Oh, give him a bigger part, give him something to do." So he's really happy to be a junior artist with his friend, but he really, really believes and supports his friend.
Yeah, and it is it's set up that, as Bri said, there is a thing in there very early on where Papu is having a conversation with him about your name is what's holding you back now. Because, this mouthful of a name that you have, it doesn't flow, it's not a star's name. And then that's our first introduction to the character of Rajesh Kapoor, who is the biggest star on the lot. He is the biggest hero. Pulls up in his big fancy sports car, pulls out, and he's, Om and Papu both have been doing this thing almost in sync where, they flip the hair sort of thing. And you get to see that's something they're clearly copying from Rajesh. That's the big move he does whenever there's a camera on him, sort of thing. And Papu says to Om, "There's the name you need. Om Kapoor." Kapoor just flows off the tongue. That's a name for a star. So we have this introduction to the idea of how they live. We also have Om has fallen in love with one of the rising stars in the industry.
Yeah, It Girl.
Yes, the It Girl, the dreamy girl, which is a reference to old Bollywood as well. The Dream Girl was a movie that, but her name, Shanti Priya. Shanti Priya is the big star in the movies at the time. He's never met her, never been on a set with her or anything like that, but he lives literally right below the giant billboard for her big premiere film.
And just to go back a little bit, this is happening, and it can happen anytime, I think, in the stage show, but it's happening in the 1970s.
Yes. So he goes up, and there's a bridge. The bridge runs right past the billboard. He'll go up to the bridge, and he'll talk to Shanti Priya, which people kind of, humor him on that. Not just Papu and his mother, but, you see people on the bridge in the background kind of being like, "Oh, look, he's doing it again." But nobody really, makes fun of him for doing it. It's just, this is a thing that he does. And his mother having just found out about his fascination with Shanti, gifts him a red thread that has been blessed by a sage, wraps it around his wrist, and says, "With this, you'll definitely meet her." And Papu is like, "Hey, guess what? That could happen tonight because there's a big premiere for a movie that she's in. We can go and see the premiere of the film. And this is just, for me, one of the perfect meet cutes ever in a movie. Because it's one that manages to be very cute, very funny, and also doesn't make you hate either of the people involved in it. That it's premiere night, Om and Papu are both like dressed up in the best rented clothes they could find. They're standing there to watch all the celebrities walk up the red carpet. And Shanti makes her appearance, and as she passes by, the fringe on her scarf catches on the red thread. And she winds up basically pulling Om down the red carpet behind her.
And he's just loving it. He's like,
yeah.
Wow.
He's like, the red thread has attached us. And then she turns around, and there is sort of a moment out on her face of, what are you doing? And then she sees, oh, I caught your thread. Sorry. Turns around to go back in, looking back, giving him like one last glance, like, that was a nice moment, wasn't it? And then she turns around, and then the police swarm him and pull him back off the red carpet.
And he's still in love.
Yes.
He's still floating.
He doesn't even notice he's being pulled away because he's so in love and so entranced at that moment. So then you get a little bit of sort of youthful hijinks going on with Papu has pickpocketed a couple of passes to the movie.
And it's of a very famous director that nobody knows what his face looks like because he's very reclusive.
Yes,
and whenever he's out in public, his hand is over his face.
Yes. So they can basically like fast talk their way in by both being standing there like this the entire time that they're... And of course everybody knows this director doesn't ever show his face, so nobody questions it. They go inside and he says to Papu, he's like, this is dangerous. What if he actually shows up? And Papu's like, oh, he's a nice guy. He won't care. Cut to outside of the theater. There's the director with the hand over his face going, no, really, I'm supposed to be in there. And they're like, do you have any ID? And he pulls out a driver's license that has his hand over his face. A bit of the movie that I absolutely love. Probably wouldn't make it onto the stage, that little bit. But
you could.
I would definitely use the gag of them going into the theater like that.
I think that the biggest struggle for this is cutting it down. And I think translating it. I think so many things can go into this. And in fact, like, we were kind of talking through these first, couple of scenes that he's in. He's actually just daydreaming. You know, it's like every single musical number that has happened up until this point, like it's 2 or 3 of them, he's daydreaming that he is the lead hero to Shanti's heroine. And so it's really, really hard to have kind of an extended dream sequence, I think, like that. I think that it's understandable for this piece, but I think like on Broadway, I think I don't know. I'm not a Broadway critic. I don't have that job, but I could also foresee there could be some party pooper not being able to suspend their disbelief that much.
Yeah, a little bit of trimming down is going to need to happen, but So they watch the movie. As Bri says, there's a big fantasy sequence where this is the moment that you get Deepika Padukone, who plays Shanti, gets essentially like Forrest Gumped into scenes where it's her dancing with her backup dancers and everything, but the male character in the scene is actually a classic Bollywood actor taken out of one of their famous roles and spliced into the moment. And then in the course of the scene, Shah Rukh Khan as Om replaces that character or swings in as like the real romantic interest in the number sort of thing. So you have this big fantasy number that's him imagining, oh, we're heroes together sort of thing, that lasts until that director manages to actually convince security that no, somebody came in on his ticket, and Papu and Om are chased out of the theater.
to which they go and they find other kids who live on the studio back lot. These are like younger kids, so we always say like it's kind of like the kids of the current junior artists. And there's like a bum there who's passed out drunk. And so anyway, they're talking about how Om is going to be this big star and win an award and need to give a speech. So he has to practice right now. So they kind of take the drunk's wine bottle and say, oh, here's your award.
Which they've been drinking themselves.
Yes.
So it's like, here, accept the bottle. One day you'll win the Filmfare Award. Yeah. Accept the bottle award from me now. And he gives a very passionate, heartfelt thank you speech to all of them, which is very loving. And it's filled with the idea of, like, if you want something with all of your heart, the universe will conspire to bring it to you. And this is where that line comes in, which is a line we both love, but has been totally wrecked by the cheesy greeting card industry. He's like, you've convinced me that, as in our art, life too can have a happy ending. Happy endings, if it's not happy, it's not the end. Yeah.
And he also steals a line from Titanic, which I was like watching it and I was like, okay, this is 1970s, whatever, fine. Yeah. Where he says, I feel like I'm the king of the world. Yes. And so there's another little movie reference in there. Mm-hmm. But basically it's a very sweet thing. And I think that, why we like it so much as well is you would hope that life is fair, that there is a sort of karma. And so if there is something that you really want to do, I think particularly us as artists and as, employees who want to work and want to help people and want to do things, you kind of hope that you're going to be lucky enough and you're going to do well enough, and hopefully that there's this plan that will guide you on your path even through rough times and being poor and all this other stuff, is that it'll work out in the end if you just keep moving towards your goal.
And this feels like, to me, this is a significant scene for the story. Yeah. That in any adaptation you're doing, this scene has to be key.
Well, and it leads up to his redemption later, which we'll get into that. Yeah. So I feel like this piece, because it does kind of come up again and again, it's really the whole... Yeah. I would say if I had to, knock the film down into a scene, that would be it. Yeah. I think that that's basically the overarching theme for it. Mm-hmm. But basically, it is kind of all of Om's character.
Yeah. And I will just really quickly, before we move on with the rest of the story here, which we should pop through as fast as we can. One of the things I love about the film, but also makes it difficult in adapting, is the amount to which the film refers to itself as it goes on. Mm-hmm. That there's foreshadowing that's very clear, like foreshadowing. We'll get to a moment of that really quickly. Get to a moment of it paying off really quickly. But there's also little things like the catching the thread gets reflected multiple times in the film. Mm-hmm. That you have that sort of movement of catching someone and dragging them along keeps happening. So almost to the point that the film itself becomes one of the classic films it is referring to.
Yeah, it's very fairy tale. You can really tell who the villain is.
Yes.
It is kind of, it's what I would think is magical thinking, as we've seen in a lot of Latin American type of work as well. But I think that that's why it is so charming.
Magical realism.
I think it really is this piece of justice and life working out and happy ever afters, because you don't get to see that, I think, too frequently in life. And so I think seeing a piece that's kind of like that, where you know who the good guy is, you know who the bad guy is, and fate is really kind of its own character working to intervene so that everyone gets what they deserve.
And now, speaking of, you really know who the villain is, we're about to meet the villain. Mm-hmm. Because the villain is not Rajesh. You might have thought that when I described Rajesh to you. Rajesh is a good guy in this film. He's a good guy. The next day, we're shown, Papu and Om have a job as junior artistes on the set of a film. We're never told the name of the film, but the film stars Shanti. And Shanti is refusing to come out of her dressing room and film the scene until she can talk to the producer of the film. And the producer of the film arrives, and he is Mukesh. And Mukesh pulls up in a big, sleek sports car, steps out, and there are hard rock guitars underneath the slow motion of him getting out of the car, which is like you turn and look at each other and you're like, you think he might be the bad guy? Yeah. He goes in, talks for just a few seconds, comes out, and he's like, she'll be ready in 10 minutes. And they're filming this scene, which is a classic Bollywood reference in itself, which is in an old Bollywood film called Mother India. There's a scene where the character of Mother India is caught in the middle of a fire.
Yeah, there's like invaders that burn their whole village down, and she's caught in the middle of it.
Yeah, she's caught in the middle of it. She's standing in the circle of haystacks, and the haystacks catch fire and start burning. And something goes wrong. The haystacks are burning. It's a shot that they have to get, or the entire movie is ruined and can't be finished. The male star is supposed to leap in, grab her, carry her off to safety. And they're like, we can't stop shooting this scene until we get that shot. But they start shooting, the flames are going up, They get to the point that he's supposed to leap in and rescue her, and he chickens out. He's not going to do it. So you have people yelling at the director, we need to cut. The director's like, no, we need to get the shot. You have a guy in the background screaming about, well, somebody leap in and save her. And Om, whose big moment in this scene is supposed to be run by the camera and shout, run, notices that she is in trouble. And he leaps through the fire, sweeps her up, and leaps back out.
He saves her.
He saves her at a time when it looked like she was going to die in the fire. This is an actual backstage story, behind-the-scenes story, from Mother India. This genuinely happened to the lead actress in Mother India. She was caught in a very real situation of this fire that was set around her, got out of control. The person who was supposed to save her didn't, and one of the other actors leapt in and saved her from the fire. Which is sort of lampshaded by the fact that someone says to the star who's supposed to leap through the fire, no, this is just like Mother India. If you jump in there and save her, maybe she'll marry you, sort of thing. But, and it's also very nice that, as they leap back out through the fire, she is completely unharmed. There's a lick of flame that comes at them. Om turns to the side to keep her away from the flame, sets her down, and immediately she is swarmed by the production team, who puts a big blanket over her and leads her away, comforting her, and he's standing there and his back is on fire. And suddenly you have all of the other extras surrounding him to be like, oh, we've got to put you out here.
Well, and let's do a couple quick jumps.
Yeah.
So I would say kind of the next thing that happens is Shanti finds Om and says, hey, thank you for rescuing me. Let's go out on a date.
Yes.
Om plans this beautiful, elaborate date on the back lot, which I said, gosh, you got to be very, very charming if you guys both work in movies and they take you to work for a date.
And at the end of the date, he basically tells her, she says, he's talking with her, says, you have the love of everyone in the world. She says, sometimes the world is not what you want, sometimes it's one person. Mm-hmm. He's like, all you have to do is ask. And she's like, yes, I will. And then she turns and walks away.
And then you find out that she's in love with that producer. And
not only is she in love with him, they're actually secretly married. Yep. So she is married to Mukesh, and she's having a baby.
Which is not good, because he's supposed to be single, she's supposed to be single. Nobody knows about this. So
and there's a big business deal for this movie they're shooting called Om Shanti Om, which will fall through if it gets revealed that they're married, because in order to seal the deal, he's supposed to marry the president of the film studio's daughter. Yeah.
So what ends up happening is Om is heartbroken. There's a big scene where he has this very like he's ruining other movies. He's so heartbroken.
He keeps walking sadly through the middle of other scenes.
And then what ends up happening is he kind of comes across the producer and Shanti, and he's like, "Oh yes, we're gonna reveal our love to the world in this movie set right here. That's for Om Shanti Om." And then he ends up lighting it on fire and hoping that she'll burn to death inside.
Yes, he locks her in the movie set, sets it on fire, because he's like, you shouldn't have encouraged me so much. He says, because you made me dream that I could be the biggest producer, and now I have to choose between you and my dream, and I'm choosing my dream.
Yep, and Om tries to save Shanti. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is both Om and Shanti die during this encounter. Shanti dies in the building. They never recover her body. Om is blown backwards out of the building and hit by a car.
Yes.
Driven by
Rajesh, who is driving his pregnant wife to the hospital.
So luckily they're going to take Om to the hospital, but he doesn't make it.
Yes, but Rajesh's son is born that same night, and Rajesh names his son Om Kapoor. Cut to 30 years later, Om Kapoor, played by Shah Rukh Khan.
Om is back! That's why Om Shanti Om, hey!
With a birthmark on his wrist that matches the tattoo of the Om symbol that Om had on his. And his life as Om Kapoor matches up perfectly with Om Prakash's vision of what life would be like as a successful actor.
Kind of a bit of a jerk, though. Kind of a bit of a diva.
Let me just say real quick, before we have the revelation that he is a jerk, bit of a diva, that's where I cut for Act 1.
Aha.
I show the audience the big moment at the end of Act 1 is the reincarnation. We see there's Om Kapoor. He's now Om Kapoor. Boom, Act 1. Come back for Act 2. We get to see Om Kapoor going out to the movie sets. It's his birthday. He goes to the movie set where he's supposed to be playing a very serious role of, I am a blind, mute, deaf man in a wheelchair with no hands who has fallen in love with a woman who's marrying someone else, and I'm heartbroken because she's marrying someone else, and I can't say I love her. I can't see her one last time. And as the director is describing this to all of this to Om, he's just sitting there going increasingly frustrated with the film. And then he's like, wait, let me take a look at this, all this monologue you've written for me. No, we need to do a song, like a sad rock song. No, that's been done. A disco song.
Well, I'd also say is I think if you updated it, he would have the AirPods in.
Yes.
He has a Bluetooth in, so he's only kind of half listening.
Yeah.
But he already knows he doesn't like it.
Yes. And then we go into Dar de Disco, which is a phenomenal musical number.
Very early 2000s.
Very early 2000s.
Enrique Iglesias, Christina Aguilera, Shakira, all that type of music video.
Lots of wet, glistening bodies. And it is, it's like, so here he is supposed to be doing this very serious, dramatic role, and it's turned into, I have my shirt off, and I'm rising up out of a swimming pool and all of this. All while he's singing Dar de Disco, which is roughly translated, the pain of disco. And now my heart is feeling the pain of disco, he's singing. So we get this image of him that he's a very spoiled brat, essentially.
Well, and I think that he knows what he likes. He has his own aesthetic. He doesn't want to work very hard to do any better. Mm-hmm. He's perfectly fine with just being okay, with just his initials, and that's kind of his little
He does
shtick.
A lot of catchphrases around it, everything's okay with okay.
Yeah. And so he doesn't really feel like he has to strive or challenge himself. He doesn't really feel like he has to answer to the better angels of his nature. He just has to show up. And he can force people to do what he wants.
But now that he has turned 30, something interesting is happening. Things are starting to remind him of his previous life. Because we have Om Prakash's mother has been chasing him, basically they think of her as his crazy stalker because she insists that he's her son. He has a phobia of fire. And so on the set of Dar de Disco, he has a moment of, he sees fire, and it reminds him of the fire in the set that killed Shanti and threw him out into the
he goes
street.
and visits the old set where he died, and he gets these visions.
Yeah, so he's starting to remember bits and pieces of it, and where it all gels is he goes to the Filmfare Awards, which, remember, that was the award that they were talking about Om Prakash would win one day. He accepts the award for Best Actor, and as he's standing up there doing kind of a cocky, he does a sentence or two of like a really cocky acceptance speech.
I deserve this.
and then suddenly, it's like the words just start coming out of him of this very sincere speech.
He finds himself crying, and he's like, what?
Yeah, and he delivers the same speech that Om Prakash delivered all those years ago, which, cut to Papu sitting at home watching on television being like...
And she was right.
Yes, and then we go into an after party, which at the after party we have him talking to his father, Rajesh,
I know that.
and being like, I've realized that my entire life I've been just sort of coasting through on being your son. Hi, Lola.
Long extended Lola.
Yes.
Looks like Lola just threw up, so we have a nice surprise for ourselves when we're done.
Yay. But he's like, I've been living my life just coasting through all of this. And from now on, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to work for what I've got. I want to be worthy of everything that I've received. I'm going to try to be a better actor, and I'm going to try to be a better son. So you have a moment of humility and recognition of, I need to be a better person. Which then goes into an extended party scene, which is all of the big Bollywood stars coming to his party and participating in this song and dance. And at the end of the song, Mukesh reappears. And his father is like, oh, you should meet Mukesh. He's like, he used to be the biggest producer here in the 70s, but then he went to America, and he's been producing films in America all of this time. But now he's back because he wants to make a movie with you. And Mukesh introduces himself with what becomes a running gag of, call me Mike. That's what they call me in Hollywood. And that is where I would cut Act 2.
Not before he went to go see his mom?
No, I would open Act 3 with that.
There you go.
So Act 2 to me is introducing the idea of he's a bit of a dick in this life. Getting up to his realization of how bad he's been. The idea of, I'm going to be a better person, and then bringing the villain back, and having the moment of recognition of him realizing who the villain is. That this is a man he's been seeing in like his memories and things like that. Cut for Act 2. Come back on Act 3 with him going to his mother's home. Om Prakash's mother's home. And being like, yes, it is me. I realize now that I have been your son all along.
And he says things that only he would have known. And
Right. Although both she and Papu are already on board that he's reincarnated. But he proves it. And he asks their help because he needs to get justice for what happened to Shanti. And that's our third act, would be all of the pursuit of justice. In order to get justice, he convinces Mukesh that they need to actually go back and do Om Shanti Om.
And he spends all of his money to set up this movie. He spends all this money to set up the backlot as it was in its heyday. He hires all people that he knows in the industry to put this movie together. He does this big audition to find somebody who looks just like Shanti and to prepare her to play the ghost. Which enter
the character of Sandia, who is the woman who shows up and looks exactly like Shanti, so let's cast her as Shanti.
But she's a little ditzy. She's
Yeah.
a little clumsy. She likes to chew gum. Like
she's not really an actress. She's just one of his big fans who really just wanted the opportunity to meet him.
And one of her problems is she passes out whenever she sees him.
Yes. And they set up this whole thing, which is basically Hamlet. It's the play within a play from Hamlet. We're going to just sort of gradually introduce the idea of there's a ghost haunting him.
Yes, catch the conscience of the king.
Yes. And they manage it to the point that Mukesh is actually like, I'm leaving. I'm going back to America. That won't do. They need to get justice for Shanti. So they convince him, no, you need to stay for the music premiere, which is a big part of Bollywood films. That, like, because music is so important to the Bollywood industry, the music premiere is a big press event where they'll do a big staged number with one of the pop songs from the show. Without them realizing it, though, see, one of the things they rigged up was a film reel with additional footage from the dailies that they had shot that had Sandy appearing as Shanti when they have a completely different actress they told him is going to be playing the part. So Mukesh thinks he's the only one seeing Shanti on the screen.
Mm-hmm. But he finds the film.
But he finds the film that has her, that proves he isn't going crazy. There she is in the film.
Yeah. And also, Sandy, when she runs by, ends up tripping and cutting herself. And he's like, well, ghosts don't bleed.
Yeah.
So I think he starts to suspect something's up and has a big confrontation with Om.
Yeah. And that he goes to the music premiere. Mm-hmm. There's a big thing of he's chasing Sandy around trying to catch her, doesn't catch her. She's supposed to be the ghost haunting him. Meanwhile, Om is singing the ballad of Om Shanti Om, which is the entire events of the first act. It's basically, I know not just what happened, I know all the details. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, we have the chandelier, Shades of Phantom of the Opera.
I told you it was Phantom of the Opera.
Shades of Phantom of the Opera. The chandelier
Crushes.
Falls and strikes Mukesh and knocks him out.
Yes, because Om, he's like, his destiny is to die. I want to kill him. And the ghost tells him, no, that he's not to die by your hand.
No. You're jumping ahead. Because this is still the music premiere. When he wakes up from being knocked out by the chandelier, because the chandelier only falls part of the way. When he wakes up from it, everybody else has been cleared out. It's just Om. And there's supposed to be...
I thought you jumped way ahead because it's 2:51.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to fit us into the time. All right. I know we're over. But it's supposed to be this big confrontation between Om and... I'm sorry. I'm mixed up now. It's supposed to be this big confrontation between Om and Mukesh, and then Sandy shows up playing the ghost of Shanti, and she comes down the steps, but Mukesh has already told Om, I know exactly what you're up to, and you're not going to get anything out of me for this. And Sandy comes down the steps, Shanti, and starts talking about, no, I'm the one who'll tell everybody what happens, even though Om is standing behind Mukesh being like, no, cut it. He knows what's going on. Don't put yourself in danger like this. It turns into a whole battle between him and Mukesh.
Yep. Well, and he wants to shoot Sandy. And so, of course, he gets involved. It was like...
And Om wrestles the gun away. He shoots Mukesh in the leg. And then he wants to shoot Mukesh. And this is what Bri was talking about. That it's like Shanti stops him, says, no, he is destined to die, but not by you. And then the chandelier just full out drops straight on him. And you have a fire is starting. The set is going up again. And the doors open behind Om. He's looking through the chandelier at Shanti. And he turns around and Sandy is one of the people coming through the door. So it was the ghost of Shanti all along.
And Sandy's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. I was like, Sandy, you didn't do anything, and everybody's treating you like a hero, whatever.
And that is where the movie ends, is with that realization. Now, really quickly, I don't want to keep us too long.
We're doing Bollywood movie time.
Because this is supposed to be my pitch for the stage adaptation.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that the third act is where I would have the most rewriting. Because the third act is primarily primarily filled up with in the movie, essentially a training montage for getting Sandy ready to play Shanti. If I were writing this, the third act it would open with the, like I said, I know who I am, I have a plan we need to do. You would have the audition scene, which I think that would be a good place to have an original song put in. And I would have Finding Sandy, but I would have Om convinced that Sandy is Shanti reincarnated. So then that montage would be replaced with scenes where he comes to realize that she's not Shanti. She's just Sandy. But also, I would establish a relationship between them. And I would establish sort of a tragic relationship of him being like, of her loving him and him being like, I really feel for you as well. But I'm here to get justice for someone I loved in a previous life. So that as we get to the end, and this would help a little bit with sort of the magic trick of Shanti ascending the stairs and then Sandy coming in behind him, giving Shanti a part after Mukesh has been killed, of calling back to his thing about, if it's not a happy ending, it's not the end. And her basically being like, you have a story now in this life with Sandy. That story needs its ending. We'll have our ending in another life. And that would be my ending of this. And I feel like that would be the major shift I would do in the third act. That is not a part of the actual film itself.
Very cool.
How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a little bit of it, but I don't think reincarnation is really something that is very big in Western civilization, in American civilization. I think everybody kind of like talks about it, but I don't think that it's treated in kind of the same way that, well, yeah, this is very, very common. Like, there are only so many souls and they're reincarnated and this is what happens. And so, yeah, I think that would add to the fairy tale a little bit for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, as a girl who likes things like Legally Blonde, I love a good audition / makeover scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think that if you are looking for kind of things to flesh it out, you do need a more substantial story. It's kind of not enough to just have, I mean, even, heck, the producers whittled down their audition scenes.
Yeah.
So yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, all right. So
what do you think?
All right, here's a big question that we can ask for, you guys can tweet at us with your thoughts, or if you're watching this on YouTube later, you can comment on the YouTube video, drop it into the chat if you have thoughts right this instant, because we're closing up very soon.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like it's a big piece, but definitely give it a watch. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. I love it.
But one of the things that we've debated that I would like to get other people's input on this is, of course, it's in Hindi. The original is in Hindi. You're doing an English language show for English language audiences, and we've had a lot of discussions about this. Do you take the songs from Om Shanti Om and present them as part of an English language show in Hindi, perhaps with super titles for the English language speakers so they can understand what's being sung, or perhaps just in straight Hindi? Or do you rewrite the lyrics for an English-speaking audience, doing your best to try to keep the things that make the Hindi lyrics wonderful and catchy?
Well, my opinion is mainly because when I was very young, I was in an opera apprenticeship program. And because of the success of K-pop, I say keep the songs in Hindi. I would not anglicize them at all. I would translate the script into English, of course, but I would want to leave the songs as is, just because I really love the songs as is, and I just feel that there's always an inherent problem with translation, with syllables and meanings and words, and sometimes it's just more fun to have the songs in their native language.
And I lean toward the same thing that Bri just said, of keep the music in its original Hindi. I favor the idea of English super titles projected, simply because I don't want the audience to lose track, especially during a song like the Ballad of Om Shanti Om, which is it's not just a love song, it's not just an attitude song or an I wish song. It is, here is a story that is significant. So English super titles I favor, and I would say maybe pick a couple of songs to translate into English, not for the show, but for the inevitable cast album to have as the bonus tracks that are recorded by American pop artists.
TikTok.
Yes, exactly. So you have Dar de Disco, you could translate as Death of Disco, like Dear I'm Dying, the Death of Disco, and have that recorded by Justin Timberlake for the album. That sort of thing. Because I like the idea of, it's not just keep the music as it is so that you have the wonder of the music and everything, but also using this as a show that springboards people into Indian entertainment in Bollywood. It's like, these songs are a big part of Bollywood, and the sound of the Hindi language in these songs is a big part of what gives the songs their unique character.
I will say the other thing we really liked while watching the show, or like whatever happened to that show, was it was called The Remix.
Yes.
And we think it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But it's basically, like, one of the things that just real quick, now I'm taking up all the time, was I think a lot of Americans would assume, well, why didn't you just have Om and his friend be the singers, since the singers are their own thing and they're never seen on screen, and that way they could have kind of like this other.
Yeah, they call them the loopback singers. It's like when an actor does not have a voice strong enough to carry the songs, they lip sync to another singer.
And it's actually very common. Like, it's not a big thing in Bollywood. Like, you don't have to be able to sing, dance, and act.
It's not considered shameful if people discover that. In fact, it's right there in the credits of this person performed the songs.
And unfortunately, like in Bollywood films, like, you could not have Om and Papu be singers because they are big stars in and of their own right. And in fact, this show called The Remix was finding the next big Bollywood star who would write and sing and be the next huge thing in the next Bollywood film that they were going to produce. And we really liked it. It was really, really fun. Now, granted, it's in Hindi, so...
Yeah. And the reason it's The Remix, and it is, I seem to remember it's subtitled in English. You can watch it with subtitles in English.
And there's like some people from like England and Australia and America. There's artists from English-speaking continents and stuff. So,
but the reason it's called The Remix is because it isn't just here's the big person trying to make it as a vocalist, but they also pair them with DJs and music producers, like independent DJs and music producers. And they work together to take older Bollywood songs and create a new remix with the new vocals and the new production. So you get a lot of classic Bollywood songs getting new updates. And it's phenomenal. It's a lot of fun. If you like any kind of like music, talent sort of competition show, that's a great one to check out.
Well, it seems like we got kitty vomit to clean.
Yes.
Our Saturday's going great. Quarantine is just peachy. But we hope that things are going so well for you out there. We realize this is a very, very tough time, and I have been slowly falling apart over the past 3 weeks, and luckily Glenn is an angel dealing with it. I could not have been stuck with someone better during quarantine. But we hope you're doing well. We hope that you're staying healthy and safe. We love you.
Stay safe. Stay indoors. If at all possible, stay indoors. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Have a great day, Jenny. It's always nice to see you.
And you're getting some masks from us and some soap and things to keep you safe and warm.
Yes.
Your internet mom and dad love you.
Until the next time, which is going to be Wednesday at 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
when Bri will be pitching her idea for a musical based on a YouTube channel, specifically Bon Appetit.
My favorite.
Yes, she's going to do the Bon Appetit musical next time.
We just thought, what would be the next big thing right for adaptation? We've seen books, we've seen movies, we've seen jukebox musicals, just songs, and we've been watching a lot of YouTube, and why not?
Musicals based on YouTube channels. I think it's the coming thing. All right, so
remember, you heard it here first.
Yes. So until next time, you guys, take care of yourselves because we're not there to take care of you, okay?
Wow.
I love you all.
Bye.
And I'm going to cue up our transition. And bye, everybody.